Kia ora talofa namaste, haere and welcome to the Niche Cage. We are here to discuss some of our favourite Aotearoa sporting matters. Currently battling a bit of illness, so we're just trying our best, and that will be why there might be a few sniffles and whatnot, but hopefully you can bear with us. We have lots of really fun Aotearoa sports to discuss. The A-League is going crazy with all sorts of mayhem. The New Zealand NBL rolls along. We've got another WNBA player. It was a very fun weekend with the V8s in Christchurch, and we also have Lani Daniels impressing as well. And I am aware, I just choose not to really care too much, but I did see that Charlisse Leger-Walker did win not sure if it's the interim, if it's the True Blue championship in Donald Trump's fighting competition, so shout out to him. But the biggest news of them all was the departure of Shane Flanagan as Dragons coach. And there was a period where the Dragons were without a coach, so they parted ways. Obviously, you can't say he was fired, you can't say he was sacked. They parted ways with Shane Flanagan, and then, unlike the Sea Eagles with Kieran Foran, just getting them in straight away, they didn't have a interim coach appointed at that time. I do see that Will Young is the interim coach, or Dean Young. Dean Young will be the Dragons coach moving forward. Shout out to Will Young, not scoring many runs in Bangladesh or in any Blackcaps cricket. He's averaging 21.8 since the start of 2025 in ODIs. And of course, we will be talking Blackcaps. We will be talking New Zealand A cricket as well. I think the best thing the Dragons could have done is find some sort of New Zealand rugby league coach and chuck them in, because Benji's going well with the Tigers, Kieran Foran's going well with the Sea Eagles, and the Dragons, they really don't give two hoots about New Zealand. So I was not surprised to find that the Dragons had not found like David Kidwell or someone that would have filled everyone with excitement. But you're a Dragons...
Jason Nightingale. My money was on Jason Nightingale.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. Maybe a Jeremy Smith.
That's a good shout too. Obviously, it has to come from back the 2010 squad when they won the championship. You know, that's how these things work. You got to pick, if you're going to pick an old boy, you got to pick one from the best era. Were there any other Kiwis? There might have been one or two on the. I can't remember.
Well, I do want to say it wasn't your best era for the Dragons, because you do have your historical
best era of the joint venture,
right,
we'll say, because the only good era of the joint venture, some might even argue, the Wayne Bennett era.
I will get to your Kiwi question in a second, but I have found it interesting. There's a lot of the Dragons folk, I don't know how you feel about this, but they do cling to that past quite heavily, and it's like, you can't just because you were once legendary, you're once a legendary club, it doesn't mean anything now. Like, no one really gives a shit now. Now you're just dramas. Like, you do see it a few times where different clubs, different franchises in sport, they refer to something that happened 50, 60 years ago as to why they're a powerhouse now. And it's like, you're not a powerhouse now because nothing that happened back then actually matters to what you're going through right now. And I would suggest that maybe Patrick Herbert could have been the Dragons coach. Superstar coming through the Dragons system. But of course, he's playing for Benji Marshall at the Tigers. Maybe Stephen Masters. Haven't seen him around. He was playing for Cook Islands recently, I do believe. So maybe Stephen Masters could be the Dragons coach. Otherwise, you are looking back at that 2010 group.
Yeah, well, it's not a lot that's happened since. So I saw a crazy stat as well about since Wayne Bennett's left, the coaches that have had Steve Price, not that one, but the other one, Paul McGregor, Anthony Griffin, and now Shane Flanagan. And Shane Flanagan's got his work cut out because the previous three coaches who have been fired slash left the Dragons, none of them have gotten head coaching jobs in the NRL again since. That was it for their careers. I think Steve Price did have like an interim game in charge of the Sharks where he's been an assistant in that time. So he has coached a game of NRL rugby league since then. He's the only one of that group. So I don't know how horrible Shane Flanagan is after 11 losses in a row and some of the stuff he'd been saying in media, which maybe contributed to that. Like, I don't know how your team's supposed to get better if your coach is saying like, well, we're not going to win anything. We're not good enough. We got no depth in the reserve grade team that came second in the New South Wales Cup last season, beaten by a very good Warriors team, including what is he, like 20-year-old phenom who ran for 250 meters with a try and a couple line breaks the other week, who immediately asked for a release after hearing his coach say that there's no depth to pick from outside the 17. So I don't know how horrible Shane Flanagan is in the future off the back of that. Do you reckon Kieran Foran would mind doing double duties? Could he coach two teams at once? Are you allowed to do that if you're an interim?
I'm sure he could do it, but he won't want to do it because why would he want to be the Dragons coach? Steve Price, I do think he is an assistant coach for the Kiwis. At least I think he has been in recent years. First under Michael Maguire, then under Stacey Jones. So Steve Price does have some New Zealand links. And everything I've heard about him is he's doing the job. So shout out to Steve Price. Everything you're discussing and the general situation at the Dragons does give us a moment to spark up a bit of mindfulness and a little bit of gratitude for where the Warriors are at. Because you could say, okay, the Warriors coming back to New Zealand, started 2023. I'm not sure if that was the Griffin era for the Dragons, but the Warriors went in a very good spot because they were based in Australia and the pandemic had ravaged their whole system. So you could say the Dragons were in a better position heading into the 2023 season than the Warriors, but the Warriors had Andrew Webster. And the Warriors had a clear plan on how they were going to rebuild their organization. And just in the opening phase of the season, they've been a top 8 team in all 4 seasons under Andrew Webster. They've also got a comprehensive development pipeline that is far superior than anything the Dragons have got. Because you're talking about juniors at the Dragons who want to leave. Right? And Loco Pacifici Tonga is not the first. They've had other guys in their system who want to leave the Dragons system, even though they're Dragons juniors. I look around the Warriors teams and I'm thinking, these guys don't seem to want to leave. Everyone who comes to the Warriors wants to stay at the Warriors, and they leave because there's better opportunities as far as their contracts, the years, and the money. And then you got someone else like Grant Anderson, who is happy to come to the Warriors. You got someone like Jackson Ford, who leaves the Dragons and gets far better at the Warriors. Not only is that happening at the NRL level, but when I think about the depth in the Warriors system, let's go halves. Tana Boyd, Chanel Harris-Tavita, Luke Metcalf, Tamata Martin, Jet Cleary, Luke Hanson, Jack Thompson, Maui Winitana, Patalasel. I don't know what the pathway is for any of them to play NRL, aside from the guys who are already playing NRL. Because maybe Jack Thompson's better than Jet Cleary. Maybe Luke Hanson is better than Jet Cleary. Maybe Jet Cleary is better than Luke Hanson. None of that, that is very cluttered. Then we go to the outside backs. New South Wales Cup over the weekend. Warriors did have 3 wins in all 3 grades over the weekend, which was very impressive. Kalis Putoko, starting centre in New South Wales Cup, has been fantastic. 17-year-old Jeremiah Lamana's played the last few games. In under-21 Jersey Flegg, they had Motu Pasikala and Taipari Wikatera, who hasn't played a whole lot this season. You got other guys like Vake in the mix as well. I don't know that there's a clear pathway for any of them to play NRL at the Warriors. And I haven't even mentioned Sio Kelly, who is always injured. Best ability is availability. So you could say like Motu Pasikala's playing under 21's Jersey Flegg. Meanwhile, a 17-year-old in Lamana's playing New South Wales Cup. Motu Pasikala, nothing suggests he wants to leave. You know, these guys, what I'm saying is these guys are willing to stay at the Warriors in a highly competitive environment. And to me, that tells me that they think the Warriors is the best place for their development. It's the best place for their happiness, their well-being, their footy, which is a massive reflection on the Warriors as an organization. Because there is tremendous competition. There's so much competition for places in the NRL team and in the system where I don't know who's going to be promoted. I don't know who's going to work their way up. I don't know who's going to be selected in the NRL team because there's so many options. There's so much competitive depth, but it doesn't matter. Because the way you think is like, oh, this guy's not playing. He's going to kick up a stink and we're going to lose him. He's going to go. Who's doing that? Everyone seems pretty happy. Everyone seems pretty chuffed. And just diving deeper into the Warriors system, 2 17-year-olds played on the weekend in New South Wales Cup, one of which, of course, was Jeremiah Lamana, who does look very comfortable as a starting centre at 17 years old. And the other one's Bishop Neal, who's 17 years old. He played 80 minutes as a starting edge forward in his first game of New South Wales Cup. Now he's come off the bench in his last 4 games, over 45 minutes in every single game of New South Wales Cup at 17 years old. Same highlights from under 17s, under 19s, and under 21s are being shown in New South Wales Cup. I think he scored at least 2 tries in under 19s, under 21s, and New South Wales Cup this year. But he's behind Kalis Fatialofa, who's behind Eddie Iramia Toiava. None of those guys are playing NRL. Like Eddie Iramia Toiava is not even playing NRL, let alone Fatialofa, who continues to just roll through 80 minutes in New South Wales Cup as a very powerful, agile edge forward. None of those guys seem to be unhappy. In every position, there is incredible depth at the Warriors, but more importantly, something I've noticed across all these teams is how content they are at the Warriors. And that is very important when you've got 3 or 4 other guys at least competing for game time in that same position. So you've got multiple guys competing for opportunities, but none of them are unhappy. They're all happy to be competing with each other, to be getting better at the Warriors, and to be the best they can be at the Warriors, which seems to be the exact opposite of whatever you're going through with the Dragons.
Yeah, well, the other thing the Warriors don't have is like, because I'm not sure who might be an let's say Dimitri Faimonga. So someone who's like a similar kind of position-ish to Loko Pacific Tonga, who has a spot in first grade and who has earned a spot in first grade. It doesn't mean you're playing 80 minutes every week. Doesn't mean you're starting every week. You might have, like, he's had a couple games this season, I think, right, where he's been like an unused substitute, which is now a thing in rugby league that can now happen. But you can see how he fits into the first grade team, whereas Pacific Tonga, when he's asking to leave. It's because he knows he's played like a dozen games of first grade. He wants to test himself at first grade. He's clearly too good for New South Wales Cup and deserves that opportunity. But ahead of him, it's not a case of like, here are a bunch of other star youngsters who are like clogging the pathways like what you're describing there, because it's a fully functioning system. The Dragons' issue in the younger grades is not a lack of talent. They're one of the better ones and their best players in the team right now are players like the Couchman brothers and Hamish Stewart have come through there. But like Emre Gula and Blake Laurie are playing significant minutes for the first grade team. Emre Gula played 45 minutes on the weekend. He had 4 runs as a starting front rower for 24 meters. Like, it's about as bad a stat line as you can get. Like, he had no impact on the game, and when he did try to have an impact, he kind of had negative impact, because you're only running 5 or 6 meters per carry. You might as well be running backwards as a front rower. That is a significant problem, right? It's not just that, because it's one thing if your star prospects are blocked by other star prospects or by really good, excelling, experienced NRL players. That's cool. That's how you get competition for places, because everyone's playing well. If you've got battlers doing terribly and also taking minutes and opportunities away from young players who have genuine potential to be like very, very good NRL players in the future and need that opportunity now to like develop their game to get to that stage, frankly, that's the kind of stuff that gets you coach sacked, right? No, not just the coach sacked, because they also got rid of the director of football, or whatever the rugby league version of that is, who Ben Harron, I think his name is, who took over in 2012. So right as Wayne Bennett left. And what's happened since Wayne Bennett left the Dragons? Nothing good. If you got a job where you take over the most important guy in terms of putting the NRL team together, and the NRL team has been bad for 14 years ever since, which exactly aligns with your job, I think maybe 14 years might have been a little bit too long to be holding that role. But yeah, let alone the fact that they almost had to cancel training today because they couldn't get an interim coach in time, because the St. George faction and the Illawarra faction don't seem to like each other very much, and it's part of the joint venture thingamajig, and that leads to dramas too. So I think the Warriors can be pretty grateful that they are just the Warriors. They're not trying to combine multiple clubs and multiple egos getting in the way. And that's probably where some of the stuff you're saying about like clinging to the history stings a bit more. Like, that's where that stuff gets in the way of making decisions in the future, is when you have 2 different histories competing with each other. It's a little bit of a messy thing. And it's not a coincidence. You do see a few of the joint venture type clubs tend to go through struggles that are a bit deeper than others, because I think it's harder to get out of those things when you just got too many conflicting personalities in the way. But I don't know, the Dragons have at least given themselves a clean slate, and they could probably do worse than probably do worse than mimicking something more closer to what the Warriors setup has been in the last few years, because that is winning games. And that is also developing players. And if you're doing both of those 2 things, well, you're hitting both of the checkpoints.
You would need to have a pretty solid coach who is driving very impressive rugby league. And there's obviously the Warriors defeated the Titans. I describe it as like the Warriors 50 minutes was better than the Titans 30 minutes, which is good enough to win NRL games. Like, that's, if you can get away with that, like, honkadori. Like, that's all you need to do to get 2 points and roll on through the season. But it's like, because once again we had some quirky selection decisions. Nickel Clockstar coming back at fullback, just the chopping and changing, which can be a little bit confusing, but ultimately it's not detrimental to the performance, because the Warriors won again. And Nickel Clockstar was doing his job until a few mishaps maybe at the end of the game. But that gets to a point where I my opinions about selections are getting more and more diminished. So the heartiness of my opinions about selections is decreasing. Because I don't really care.
Is that because they're winning, or?
Because they're winning, and because, like, you put Nickel Clockstar at fullback, he's going to have a crack. He's got his pros. There's a few cons, but his cons are, his weaknesses, he's not like super duper fast. If you put any other player, like, or the halves conundrum, aside from Luke Metcalf being shit in his 2 games, I think we can all agree that Luke Metcalf might find a way to be a winning half with Harris Tavita, with Tanner Boyd. Personally, I think Harris Tavita should just stay as number 6 always, because he was good with Metcalf last season. He's good with Tanner Boyd this season. Maybe the common factor is Chanel Harris Tavita instead of the fetish that everyone has about halfbacks. Maybe just having a really good, solid number 6 who you can rely upon to play a standard of footy every single week is quite important. But my point here is, like, whether it's Morgan Gannon, Eddie Iramia Toiava, Tanistawa Smith, you put any of those guys in, I'm not angry about it. It's not like, okay, this guy's been like Blake Laurie's been selected ahead of Pacific Tonga, or Emre Gula averaging 6 meters per run on 4 runs is getting game time.
Or Valentine Holmes is an Origin centre who tackled at 55% on the weekend, missed 12 tackles, and just Latrell Mitchell ran over him, ran under him, ran through him every opportunity.
I mean, the worst player, according to some folks, at the Warriors was Ali Leatawa. And he's 5-0 as a starting centre. To the point where, like, so the win over the Storm, epic, amazing win. What happens after that? Mitchell Barnett comes in. Kurt Capewell comes in. Nickel Clockstar comes in. And they win. Like, the change is happening. Niokore was pretty good against the Storm. And it was a good moment for the Newcastle Knights to do their big announcement of signing Marata Niokore. Well, guess what? He didn't play for the Warriors. The Warriors didn't need him. So it's like, we can... Ultimately, I think, like, I don't know if the selection... not dramas, but just the confusion, oftentimes it doesn't even matter, because when it comes to selecting your best team for a game of finals footy or whatever, a lot of it has already been decided upon, because someone's injured, someone's suspended, and HIAs and all that stuff happens. So our opinions don't really matter, because the footy gods have a way of sorting it all out. But we have seen time and time again with the Warriors during the 2 Andes era and this season that they can win games without Sean Johnson, without Tohu Harris, without Dylan Walker. I mean, people were having a moan about Marcelo Montoya leaving. Guess what? They kept winning. Okay, Luke Metcalf, he's in Dally M point-scoring form. Well, the Warriors' attack is better right now than it was when he was the Dally M contender. But also, well, we've just got another half who can do the job. And then if you get those players in the Warriors system for 2 summers, they're going to get better. Like, the battlers for the Warriors, the battler for the Warriors is Jackson Ford. And he's the Dally M leader. Right? He's averaging 182 meters this season. I think he had 22 runs for 220-something meters. Emre Gula had 4 runs averaging 6 meters. Jackson Ford had 22 runs averaging 10 meters per run. Like, these are the things that are happening at the Warriors. So you've got this mix of, like, players getting better, players stepping in to do their job. You got amazing depth where doesn't necessarily matter who plays. I still think they can do the job and win. Like, yes, I think the best Warriors team has Tane Tuaupiki at fullback. But Nickel Clockstar is not detrimental to the Warriors. So you got 2 fullback options right there. That's what you need. How many halves options do they have? 3 or 4, maybe 5. Maybe 6 if you're super duper high on Jet Cleary. All of that's happening, and we have seen high completion rates throughout the 2 Andes era. All 5 games of the Warriors have been over 80% completions. They've won this season. They've been one of the best completing teams under Andrew Webster in the NRL. Then we've seen progression in their try scoring. We've seen growth in their offloads. We've seen growth in their dummy half running. They aren't just scoring more points right now than they were last season when Luke Metcalf was in the Dally M conversation. They're doing more attacking funk. Offloads, dummy half running, all those factors. I don't know what my first original point was because my mind's a bit fried. But the Warriors just have this level of stability right now that we have never seen. We have never seen a Warriors team with a baseline, like a benchmark where they're at. And this comes after they did have those 2 losses, but then they had 2 wins. And during those 2 losses, I was always thinking, what's the response? What's the response? What's the response? They responded with 2 wins. And that is when you add that with everything else, the stability and the place where the Warriors are at right now does force me into gratitude, especially when you are comparing it to other NRL teams and other NRL systems, because Australians do not care about anything that's happening in New Zealand. So they might not be fully aware of the fact that 3 17-year-olds have played New South Wales Cup this season. That in every position I can go through and say, these 3 guys at least, maybe 4 or 5, are on a trajectory to NRL. And for fans, it's amazing because the best player will win that battle because there's so much competitive depth.
Yeah, to compare that one last time to the Dragons, like when you've got Valentine Holmes barely making half of his tackles and he was good last year. I don't know what's happened to him, but he's been abysmal this season. Like the drop-off has been stark. Or like Jaden Saw deciding he's going to just take someone's head off and get red carded towards the end of the game while you're trying to mount a comeback, or your halves who are just kicking horrendously all the way through the season, including like when they put Flanagan the younger at halfback to start the year and was like, you're going to be our controlling half, and now he's doing like 2 kicks in a game, and Atkinson's taking all the kicks, and Atkinson's not a very good kicker either. And you got players in there who are, let alone the aforementioned Emre Gula and Blake Laurie, the Bombers up top. You got players in there who are just like, I get you're losing every week and they're being picked every week. And they start to feel, I guess, like you couldn't, even if it's not conscious, you couldn't possibly avoid starting to feel like, well, my position, I guess, is safe. And there's a little bit of complacency that's going to creep in there. What you're talking about the Warriors is they're able to win games whilst rotating. There's now there is like, you can just say Ali Leataua, yeah, he spent some time in reserve grade. He has also won all 5 of his games this season. Chanel Harris-Tavita or whoever, like going through these, there's some point of evidence for most or all of these guys. We can say like, yeah, they've been a winning team with that guy in the team. They've won games with this halves combination, that halves combination. It's another way of getting through it, and there is a fine balance here because you don't want to overcomplicate things and just be tweaking for tweaking's sake. But if you are able to show that you can win games with like beyond just your first 13, first 17, first 19, whatever we're up to now with benches. If you can show that you're able to, like, this guy's out, next man up, we still win. We still play the same way that we did with that guy in the team, with this guy replacing him. That is just another way of driving competition for places, and it's another way of setting a high baseline for those New South Wales Cup guys to know, like, that's the level I need to reach to get in there. And it's another way of showing, like, because all coaches have to be adaptable. You have to be able to, because like you said, injuries will happen. There will be reasons, suspensions will happen. There will be reasons why you cannot pick your best team every week, even in finals, even in a grand final. You might well not be able to pick the ideal team that you would like. You need to be able to trust that the next guys can do a job. And if you can win games when those next guys get their opportunities, you have a squad, like you have a whole squad there, and you need that to be like a top end competitive NRL team. You need to be able to have that. And the opposite is what the Dragons have been doing, where you keep picking the same players even when you're losing, and then not only do you not have that competition for players for places, but you're also just like shrinking your squad. You don't even have a 13 at this point, because there are people in the starting lineup who aren't doing their job, let alone alternatives like hungry for an opportunity.
And there's these other situations where, most recently, Adam Pompey. So Adam Pompey, I thought he was just doing his job. A good Warriors footy, he's just doing his job as a centre. Then for some reason, he has the sin bin against someone at Mount Smart, and then he gets suspended for his high knee thing. Well, if you do stuff like that, whether it's like, I don't know, get into the nitty gritty of the decisions, but if you do stuff like that, you're giving opportunities to someone else, but the opportunities aren't always predictable. Because I didn't predict that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck would be selected at centre. So now we've got a Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Alofiana Khan Pereira combo that is pretty awesome. Because Khan Pereira is very fast, and Tuivasa-Sheck's hard to handle. None of that was on my mind 5 weeks ago. So you got situations like that arise, and it does reinforce the depth that the Warriors have, because there's things that we aren't even thinking about that could happen. Like Jackson Ford becoming a middle forward. He came to the Warriors as an edge forward. Then he suddenly becomes a middle forward. Taintua Piki playing on the wing last season. Wasn't predicting that. Oh, the Warriors don't have enough wingers. Well, if we put Taintua Piki on the wing, we've got enough wingers. Warriors don't have enough centres. Well, if we put Tuivasa-Sheck at centre, we have enough centres. There's like, yes, you've got players who we had no idea that Tanner Boyd was going to have a career best season that he is already having right now. Like, he's literally got the most tries assists, and the most winning percentage of his career. This is the best season of Tanner Boyd's career. There's stuff like that is happening. But there's also things that happen that we just have no idea could happen. Like, I had Tuivasa-Sheck was never in my centre category in my depth charts. Now he's playing centre and he's doing his job. It's like, that gets back to the selection stuff. Like, yes, I have like a vision of what my best Warriors team looks like, but we're probably not going to have that many weeks in a row, if any weeks in a row. And B, there's so many combinations and tweaks and little things that could happen that we can't predict, that Andrew Webster can't predict, but he can make happen. And we've seen it most recently with Tuivasa-Sheck taking that Adam Pompey position, but also that brings Khan Pereira into the team. So now we're dealing with a back five where it's Tuau Piki and Nickel Clockstar, Ali Leotawa, Watene Zelezniak, Tuivasa-Sheck, Khan Pereira, and that might be their best back 5, but we still don't know who the best fullback is, so we'll go 6. Like, none of that was predicted. But here we are, enjoying it, and I really enjoy Khan Pereira as a Warriors player. Like he seems to be enjoying his time at the Warriors, and again, another player who has come to the Warriors and is clearly happy. He's happy, he's playing well, and he's adding value to the Warriors, which should be the main thing we have in mind when we're thinking about signing players in the future. The history tells us that recent history tells us that players love being at the Warriors. Let's get a bit of mindfulness before we continue any further.
Alrighty, let's do that. And this one comes from an old Sioux Nation proverb, allegedly. Whenever it gets into old proverb stuff, you're never quite sure. Everyone kind of claims it, but I saw it attributed to the Sioux Nation. The proverb goes, "The frog does not drink up the pond in which he lives."
Because then he's got no more pond.
And he doesn't have a pond to live in if he does that.
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, my brain's a bit fried. I can't really process the deep intricacies of the mindfulness, but it does smell a bit like don't poo where you eat type of thing.
Yeah, it does. I thought of that I didn't think of that when I wrote it down, and then I thought of it as I was reading it out. It's like, there you go. Yeah, respect your environment. Respect that your environment sustains you as well as itself, and that unnecessarily diminishing it is going to diminish yourself at the same time. That frog that drank up its own pond, which didn't happen because the frog doesn't do that, but the frog that hypothetically would have done that is not going to be a frog much longer, is he? Whether you got nowhere to live.
Correct, I agree. Well done. Is Lani Daniels the best boxer from New Zealand right now? And I say that without full intricate knowledge of what Joseph Parker is up to. Aside from, he had a bit of a drug ban, didn't he?
Yeah, and last I heard was like old dangerous Dave Higgins saying that he, absolutely convinced that they're going to be, this is going to, justice will be served upon the retest, and they're going to be acquitted and everything. And that was months ago now. I haven't heard anything since then, and I haven't looked it up, so there might be something, but it suggests that the length of time that we haven't heard from Joseph Parker might not be a good thing in that case, in which case, yeah, well, we can't, if he's suspended, we can't say that he's our top boxer. He's not a boxer right now. He's suspended. And then even if he wasn't suspended, he's not a triple champion. He's not doing what Lani Daniels just did, which was just a tremendous win on the weekend over an American opponent who was much more favored to win. Lani Daniels coming off she's been a champion before. She had won, I think, she'd won a single championship bout, which makes you a champion, but not, just not unanimous championship stuff. But she'd had a championship bout in the heavyweight division, and then I think also in the light heavyweight division. And now she's dropped to super middleweight, coming off. She's sort of gone like a little progression because she fought Clarissa Shields for like the unanimous, absolutely everything belts, the full table of them. Like 2 years ago, lost in a unanimous decision. That would have been heavyweight, I think. Then she fought for a light heavyweight bout and lost again on a unanimous decision. So this was like dropping down again to see where she goes, and was expected, like by all accounts, she should have lost on another unanimous decision. That's about what would have been the predicted outcome. Instead, just like a stunning technical knockout victory, put her opponent in the corner and just like wrecked her. The opponent had to leave in a stretcher. I can't remember their name, but I'll check it so that I'm not being, disrespectful about that when I stop talking. But like that was a tremendous upset victory, amazing win for Lani Daniels, who therefore claims, I think it's the IBF, the WBO, and the Ring Magazine title bouts for the super. What did I say? Super middleweight. There are fewer divisions as well on women's boxing than there are men's ones. So if you're trying to figure out the progressions going down, that's a bit, it's slightly different there. But that means she's like, most incredibly of this, it means she has held world championships in 3 different divisions. Like that's crazy. That is like rare air by itself. But also, this is a bit different because she's now got 3 belts in the one division, not just the one belt like she had, which means she's not just a champion, she's the champion. She has a majority of the belts that are available in this division. She is the super middleweight champion of the world right now. The unified, well, not quite unified because there are other belts that she doesn't possess, but the she has the overwhelming amount of them, and that is beyond unprecedented for a Kiwi boxer. They're like both of those two things, the like championships in different divisions, world titles rather, in different divisions. That's, I don't know if it's unprecedented, but it's at least extremely rare. But having 3 at once as well is, yeah, that is. I'm sorry to Joseph Parker, but there's nothing he could have done short of like winning them all at heavyweight level. To that's what he would have to do to overtake that. So yeah, there you go. Lani Daniels, pride of Northland.
You also know a lot now about the Connecticut Sun, where Charlisse Leger-Walker is playing or is part of the WNBA squad for them, having been drafted last week. So she was drafted by Connecticut, and now you're just gathering all sorts of Connecticut basketball information. Shout out to our newsletter, thenishcage.substack.com, that comes out every Monday and Thursday. You've gone full deep dive into everything that is happening for Connecticut, because as a draft pick, Charlisse Leger-Walker is one of the lower ranked players in that squad. So we need to know if she's going to be playing, what her chances are of progressing through that squad. There is a Kiwi connection with Chaz Franklin, who I think did some work in New Zealand. So he's got a bit of the Kiwi flavour there. He is the head of player development, because you listed every staff member, which is
Copy paste.
Yeah,
They listed every staff member, and I just didn't delete the bits that I didn't need.
You've got every squad player and you've got every staff member, so we know a lot about Connecticut Sun basketball here at the Niche Cage now, because they do have Charlisse Leger-Walker, not the first player from New Zealand to be drafted into the WNBA, not the first Māori to be drafted into the WNBA either. She is there. She continues Aotearoa's excellent connection with, well, not, she just continues Aotearoa's excellence in basketball at the highest level. What are her chances of getting game time, do you think, just early in your research about where she sits at Connecticut?
Shadeja Green was the fighter that Lani Daniels beat, by the way, who there was some concern about like her well-being, obviously, after you get stretched out of the ring, but it sounds like she's done interviews since then where she's saying she's fine, she'll be, she'll recover fully, so that's all good to hear. Lani Daniels herself was quite like after winning the biggest fight, well, the biggest win of her career, she was also, expressing a fair bit of concern for her opponents. That's, good respectful stuff there. I have done a lot of research on the Connecticut Sun, which the first thing I had to learn was that they're not called the Connecticut Suns. It's just the one Sun. It's a singular. And I'm not alone in making that mistake, because Brittany Griner, their star, sort of their big name off-season signing, also did that at training camp on day one, yelled out, "Let's go Suns," and then people told her off about it. It's like, come on. She's only just arrived at the team. Come on.
It does make sense, because we do have one sun that drives our life here on planet Earth.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Why are the Phoenix Suns, where do they get their extra suns from? Maybe that's why they don't win championships, because they've got an illogical name. But yeah, that is a thing. But also the other thing about that is you kind of don't have to remember it for that long, because they're not actually going to be the Connecticut Sun for very long. And this is one of the other, she's ended up in an amazing spot, Charlisse Leger-Walker, because I keep just picking up all these different connections. Like the Chaz Franklin one had to have been significant because he's done a bunch of training camps for years in New Zealand. He's been doing stuff, including I think he was here most recently in like October or November last year doing basketball training camps. But it's not just training camps. He's done stuff with Basketball New Zealand on a like official capacity as well. And that includes, most notably, when they had their pre-World Cup qualifiers. So this is right after Nat Hurst took over as the Tall Ferns coach. He was on the coaching staff while they had it when they were still like filling out an interim coaching staff before she got her full assistants on board. He was one of the ones who filled in alongside Leanne Walker, Charlisse Leger-Walker's mother. So he literally coached the national team that Charlisse plays for, although didn't play in that series because that was right after she had done her ACL. But he's like coached alongside her mum. So there's absolutely no way that he wasn't fully aware of who she was. And I've got to imagine was probably a pretty big voice in getting them to draft her. And there's a video of like the staff meeting. It was this particular one was just them meeting Charlisse Leger-Walker and Gianna Neepkins, her UCLA teammate, who's also been drafted to the same team, which is a pretty cool aspect of this too. Like meeting them at the airport or the training facilities or something like that, some big building where they walk in sliding doors and meet them. And there's a bit where Neepkins asked Chaz Franklin, "Wait, are you from New Zealand?" And he's like, "No, I'm from Philadelphia." And Charlisse jumps in and is like, "But he's an honorary Kiwi." Like, yeah, cool. That's the endorsement we need there. But there's an even bigger Kiwi connection at play here because the Connecticut Sun, like within the last couple months, have moved into like the final stages of a ownership change, and it's the Fertitta family that are buying them. The Fertitta family owns the Houston Rockets, who not so long ago gave Steven Adams a nice hearty extension for a couple extra years. And they're moving the Connecticut Sun after this season. So this season, they're going to play in Connecticut. Next season, they're moving them to Houston. They're going to call them the Houston Comets, which is reviving an old name that used to be the case. So they're keeping an astrological theme there. But no, you can have multiple comets. That's fine. There are lots of comets in the sky, so you can be the Houston Comets. That's cool. It doesn't have to be a sun-sun situation. But that would mean that in 12 months' time, not quite yet, but in 12 months' time, if all goes to plan, nobody gets traded, nobody gets, cut or anything like that, we could well have Steven Adams, our only New Zealander in the NBA, although actually if all goes to best case scenario between now and then, maybe they won't be the only ones. Maybe we'll get some more players in there over the coming 12 months. But, realistically, Steven Adams, the main man in the NBA from New Zealand, Charlisse Leger-Walker, hopefully going to be the main woman in the WNBA from New Zealand, could be playing in the same city for the same ownership. That's a level of alignment that I never anticipated, but quite glad to see that happening. I think it's very cool, and I'm looking forward to the first time they chuck them together and do like some dual interviews and start getting the Kiwi theme and Houston stuff going, because I'm sure like that is especially with those two personalities, like that would be a waste of marketing team not to come up with that idea. As to whether she will be on that roster, well, the more I read and research, the more I think I'm pretty certain she will be. There is 17 players in their training camp, and 14 of them are going to get contracts of some capacity. It's the perfect time to be entering the WNBA because they just kicked in a new collective bargaining agreement where the team salary cap was $1.5 million per season. It's going up to 7. So it's multiplied by 4, basically, like 4 times the salaries from this season compared to others. That comes with you could have 12 player rosters anyway, but they've made it to where you have to have 12 players on your rosters. Before it was like a max of 12 and you could get away with 11, but also there's 2 development players on top of that. So there's 14 spots of some capacity up for grabs, and Charlisse Leger-Walker is she's the 3rd of their 4 draft picks, but she was picked 18th overall. So they had 3 fairly significant picks there. I would imagine it's a pretty good shout that she gets there anyway. But then from breaking down the roster as best I can for players who, other than Neepkins, who was playing alongside Leger-Walker in college, other than her, I don't know any of these players before. I've never seen any of them play, except for Brittany Griner. She is like a I think it's 10, 12-time WNBA All-Star or something along those lines. I think people might remember her best, though, for when she got arrested in Russia for, it was a very worrisome situation there for her for a little while. Other than that, I don't know any of these players, so I can't say a lot, but from what I can tell, I don't really. She might be the second ranked point guard of that lot. Like, there's a lot of shooting guards, there's a lot of bigs. They've got good positional variability across the spot. Like, they cover the players who cover different positions, players who like they have a range of they have all their bases covered basically, except kind of point guard. Like, point guard seems like the one with their weakest. They have a French girl who was a draft pick a couple of years ago who had a very good season last year. She'll be their Layla Lakin. She'll be their starting point guard most likely. Charlisse Leger-Walker might be the backup point guard. Like, she might go in her first game of WNBA and be playing decent minutes off the bench. At the very least, like, they might sign one of the veterans who are there on training roster capacity at the moment. Maybe that happens. Either way, I'd be pretty shocked if she doesn't make the roster. And she is coming in as a rookie as well. So, like, you don't expect too much too soon. So even just playing in that first game would be a healthy bonus. She's got time to work her way in, but from all descriptions, including some of the stuff I've heard from the first couple, was seen from journalists who were there at the first couple of days of training camp, she seems like someone who, as we sort of suspected throughout her final season with UCLA, like the suspicions seem to be proving true, that she is someone who can make that jump from college to the pros fairly smoothly, because she is an experienced player. She knows her game very well. She has an adaptable game as well, which means she can slot into different roles. But in particular, that sort of the stuff she did for UCLA last year, where it was a lot of maybe like sort of managing the team, game first type stuff, pass first type stuff, game management. That is more or less the role you want from a point guard coming off the bench, whether they're a rookie or not. Like, I don't think she's going to play like a rookie. I think that is the type of it's the reason why her college coach said that she was going to be the steal of the draft. So all these things seem very promising. All these things seem like we're all pointing in the direction of being able to get a Charlisse Leger-Walker WNBA debut in a couple of weeks, because the season starts in a couple of weeks. Like, you finish your college final, 8 days later you're at the draft getting picked up. About 3 or 4 days later, you're starting training camp. And about a week, they'll have preseason games. And then about 2 weeks after that, the actual season will begin. So it's just like full steam ahead. Everything's probably a bit of a whirlwind, but I don't know that that's the worst thing, when the whirlwind has been pretty, I'd say fruitful. You don't really get fruitful whirlwinds. That is mixing metaphors, unless the whirlwind goes through a fruit tree, I guess. I don't know. But positive signs, lots of positive signs, lots of positive momentum. And I think this is one of the most significant stories that we've got in Kiwi sports at the moment. And I'm a little bit surprised. Like, it was good buzz about her getting drafted. To me, I see that as like that's the start. The stuff she does next, everything she does after getting drafted is more significant than the thing that happened before. So I'm pretty excited to get this, especially at a time where the NBA playoffs are happening and the Houston Rockets are there, but Steven Adams is injured, and that's pretty depressing, not being able to see him on that stage. But Charlisse Leger-Walker has turned up just in the nick of time to fill in that gap.
You did highlight the New Zealand connections there, but it's probably worth highlighting for Connecticut, soon to be Houston Comets, that their coach is from France and they have 3 players from France on their roster. So they're also very, very French. NBL basketball rolls along. 4 teams have 2 wins from 2 games: Otago, Auckland, Tauranga, and Canterbury. They're all 2-0. Hawke's Bay 0-3, Nelson Giants 0-2, Franklin Bulls 0-2. Is there one or two things that stand out to you from the first couple of weeks of NBL basketball? I'll just roll through some stat leaders while I give you time to have a little think there. Ruben Tarangi, average points, he's leading 35 points, which continues to be a nice little surprise coming off that Breakers season. Average assists is Aaron Cook Jr. on 10.7. Rebounds, Sam Timmins is the leading rebounder. I did see in the newsletter yesterday the paid section for all the generous folks funding our mahi on Substack and Patreon. You did do a nice little breakdown of all NBL teams, which reminded me that Jonathan Yim is still the coach of the Southland Sharks, where Sam Timmins is playing alongside Max Darling and Toby Cameron, two very good Tall Blacks players. And I also see that Jack Andrew, the big man, like Sam Timmins, he's now playing for Canterbury, so he seems to be doing all right there for Canterbury. There aren't many Otago Nuggets players at the top of the stat rankings, but I do see that they have two players averaging 3 steals per game, Boy Tuak and Isaac Miller-Jose, neither of whom I think are from New Zealand.
Isaac Miller-Jose is, I think. He's he played for Manawatu or Wellington last year. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, he's been around a little bit. I like that Canterbury team, and they what is it? They won 2 in a row, and then last year they dipped out, I think, in the semi-finals. But the Wellington Saints team that won it doesn't look a lot like the Wellington Saints team this year. They'll still be very good. They've still got Aaron Young as coach. That's an automatic baseline. They've added Carlin Davison. Again, that's an automatic baseline because he's given you some hectic performances every single opportunity he gets. But they don't, Hiram Harris isn't back. Toby Smith-Milner's moved to Nelson. There's Isaiah Liafara is there, I think, but is still injured, so he's one to come back, and that will obviously be a significant boost for them. So I expect the Saints to be there or thereabouts, but they played Canterbury on the weekend, and Canterbury thrashed them. And Canterbury looked really, really good with Jack Andrew is a fantastic addition for them. Taylor Britt's there, Walter Brown's there. I've, for the last few years, really loved the young core that they have. They don't get huge minutes, but it just goes to show that it's not just that Canterbury are winning championships. They're also, a lot of these national youth teams have a pretty hefty chunk of Canterbury players in their ranks as well. So they're developing some extremely good talent too. That is a team that I think is going to be, I think they're the early season favorites, and as much as you can have an early season favorite in a competition where a lot of players haven't actually arrived yet, because that's the thing with Southland Sharks. I expect them to be up near the top as well, but they haven't had a great start, and part of that is because Tobias Cameron isn't there yet. Max Starling isn't there yet. There's key players who haven't arrived, let alone imports and stuff. That's just always how it goes in the first month or so of the NBL. Did get some Jackson Ball for Hawke's Bay on the weekend. Thought they looked good, but they also didn't win. So so it goes. Keanu Rasmussen's back for them too. I think that's a cool one because he is a dude who played for them a couple of years ago. Didn't play last season. So when he played a couple of years ago, it was sort of highlighted. Well, they've signed him as a Aussie born and bred player, but because he has a Kiwi father, they were able to sign him as a local player. And then when that happens, you start to wonder, is this like a little precursor, as we've seen in a few instances? It's like Lukey Yates did it last year for the Hawke's Bay Hawks, went and played a season for them, and then goes and plays for the Tall Blacks after that. That didn't happen for Rasmussen when he played for Hawke's Bay last time. Then he didn't come back and play NBL last year. He is back this year. And in between those seasons, like during the last Aussie NBL season, where he was a development player at, I think it was Adelaide. Yes, because he was teammates with Flynn Cameron. he did get called up for a Tall Black squad, and he has played for the Tall Blacks since then. So he has made that commitment to Aotearoa basketball, and that's cool to see him back in the mix. But yeah, early days in the competition, we have to see how things shake out. But as far as we can take, lessons from these initial games, Canterbury Rams look like the team so far.
Is there one youngster who you should want to suggest we should watch out for? Someone who's getting good minutes and is obviously awesome at basketball, aside from Jackson Ball, who we all know about, and he's going to be playing a lot of big minutes. And I'd also add, I don't think the Breakers have got their coach locked in yet.
No, no, and there was the chat was that they wanted to go back to Moni Mayor, which I thought was a slight surprise, but not entirely. The surprise is less that they would want him back, because he was good when he was there, and he knows the team, and he's got a grounding in Kiwi basketball from the years that he was with the Breakers before. That's all good stuff, but surprised that they would. I was surprised that was a rumor, because like the reason he left is because he got a much bigger paycheck to go to Japan. So why would he come back to the lesser paycheck? Maybe he just really loved living here, so that was an option. But according to the bro Olgun from SBN, it sounds like he's going to get a college basketball job in the States instead. So that means the Breakers, I'm sure, not back to square one. I'm sure they have other options, and there are some pretty decent coaches available. But yeah, they don't have one locked in right now. They have managed to re-sign Sam Meninga. They already had Parker Jackson Cartwright under contract. So those are two, arguably that's more important than who they sign as head coach, is getting your star players on board. So they've got that. They've got you can build a team around those two guys. They were their two best players last season, but they don't have a coach yet. So we're waiting on that one.
Notable youngster that you want to throw at us?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because it's hard to predict who's going to get. Like, even if players are playing at the moment now, it's hard to predict who's going to stay playing beyond that once teams hit full capacity. But they're like, I don't know. The guys I'm keeping an eye out for are mostly those guys from that under-18s team that was way Jackson Ball was part of that recently, and most of them are turning up. I've heard good things about Arana Robertson and Aubrey Chunga playing for Wellington Saints. So because that's the Wellington Saints, and I expect them to be a good team, because that's also like a team that's slightly in transition in terms of their squad. Those guys might come into the mix this week, and be cool if they play. Cole Hopway playing for Tauranga is in that team as well, brother of Carter Hopway. I mentioned some of the stuff last week, but also that Canterbury, because I was talking about how good Canterbury's development players are. The three players that I went through there looking for their emerging youngsters for that. But in the paid section of the newsletter, I wrote down Mana Martin, Tawhiti Kate, and Ihaka Kate. I've spelled that wrong. It's Ihaka. But the Kate brothers are tremendous. The Mana Martin has been around for a couple of years and is awesome. I forget which one. I think Tawhiti Kate is the older one and Ihaka is the younger one. I might get that. I might have that back to front, but they're both in contention to get some minutes, and we'll see how that goes, because Canterbury Rams, like I say, are an awesome team, very strong, but they do definitely make an effort to get the young fellas out there. And also, even if you're not playing in the NBL game, you've got the Rapid League game, and guys are, that's often where a lot of that development happens as well too. So no shortage of that stuff in the NBL season for sure.
Antonio Verhoeven could have dabbled in a bit of Canterbury basketball as well before pursuing rugby league, because he was playing basketball as well as rugby union and rugby league in Greymouth, and then in Christchurch. I think he went to St. Bede's College, where he was involved in their basketball. So he might have had some sort of tie-in with Canterbury basketball, which is a funky little wrinkle there. A-League football. Phoenix win. Good win for the Phoenix. They're 7th. 4 points behind Melbourne Victory, who are 6th. and Auckland FC, I think they had a 1-0 loss against the Mariners. Where are we at with the Phoenix chasing finals footy? They have won 4 of their last 5 games, so they're on the up. And it was a very good win in Christchurch. Busy weekend in Christchurch with the V8s as well. And funky little period coming up for Christchurch because they got the new stadium. A lot of cool stuff happening there. And obviously the Canterbury Rams play their basketball in Christchurch as well. Just wrap up the Phoenix finals situation for us.
It's wrapped.
Okay.
It's wrapped up. They've won 4 of their last 5, but the one they lost was against the team they most needed to win, because that was Melbourne City, who they're competing with to get that. Well, it was to get that top, that 6th spot, but Melbourne City look like they're going to finish a bit higher than that because they're kind of the form team in the competition at a time when Newcastle Jets have been confirmed as minor premiers thanks to thanks to Auckland FC's loss on the weekend. Auckland FC have only won 1 of their last 5 games, but also Newcastle Jets have only won 1 of their last 5 games as well. So the 2 teams at the top of the table are kind of stumbling to the finish line. Melbourne Victory were in very good form as well up until Juan Mata got injured, but it sounds like he could be back this weekend. So there's that chasing pack. Adelaide's a dangerous team. For quite a while there, it was looking like Newcastle and Auckland were kind of just stretching it out, and now those 2 teams are stumbling, and the chasing pack looks pretty handy. And even the Wellington Phoenix, who aren't going to be in finals football, like you said, they've won 4 of the last 5 themselves. So it's been a crazy competitive season, because in a different year, maybe the Phoenix would have been out of the mix by the time Greenacre took over anyway, and then the season looks quite different. Maybe he might have actually played some of his young players if that was the case. But yeah, they've been winning games. They've been finding ways to win these games. They seem to have turned into a very this might be something to look up for the Thursday newsletter. I'm curious how many of their goals have come from either headers or set pieces, because it seems like most of them have come that way since Greenacre took over. There's a counter-attacking goal that Eze scored that Luke Brooks-Smith set up a few weeks ago, so there's at least one there. Both headers on the weekend, though, in the win over Western Sydney Wanderers. So they're doing all right. It's sounding increasingly like Chris Greenacre is just going to get the permanent job without them actually doing like any kind of recruitment process and seeing who else might be available, which I personally think is kind of crazy. Even if you do that process and come back to the conclusion that Greenacre is the best option, that's cool. That's fine. But like, if you're not actually going to do that due diligence, I'm not sure that's the kind of thinking that takes the Phoenix into a better situation, but we'll see how that goes. Increasing whispers that Alex Rufer might leave as well. There's a rumor to Newcastle Jets a few weeks ago, and according to the Jets fans on social media, it sounds like that actually is quite legitimate. So it might be something of a rebuild hidden for the Wellington Phoenix, whoever their coach is. They do have a back 4 lockdown, because Lucas Kelly-Hield started on the weekend. He's contracted for next year, as is Tim Payne, as is Bill Tuiloma, as is Isaac Hughes. So that's cool. But kind of everyone else except for Corbin Piper in the starting lineup on the weekend is an impending free agent. So lots of decisions to be made for the Wellington Phoenix, who will get to start making those decisions after next week, because they cannot make the top 6. They are now out of contention with 1 week to go. So yeah, that game on the weekend will be interesting to see whether the approach changes at all, whether there's maybe some of those players who aren't getting a lot of minutes but are also competing for contracts, whether those decisions have been made, or if they might get one last opportunity to showcase what they can do. And yeah, Auckland FC are away to Sydney, and I don't think they could slip as low as 4th. Realistically, they're more likely they could slip to 3rd. I don't think 3rd and 4th makes much of a difference whether you're there or the other, but the difference between dropping out of 2nd sure does, because that means you miss out on your first round bye. You got to go into the elimination finals, and that can be a slippery slope, especially for a team that hasn't been. It's not even. I don't even think they're playing badly. They just have a way of their finishing has deserted them at a time where that's quite important. But they have had some comeback draws there, and like a draw away against Adelaide, a draw against Melbourne Victory. Those are good results. It's just that they've struggled in very dominant performances against Macarthur and against Central Coast on either side of that to put the ball in the net when they needed to. And that is an issue if they carry that into finals. So they will definitely want a performance, not even just a performance, but just like a result against Sydney FC away on the weekend to like, I think it's on Sunday, that game. Just to like steady the ship a little bit, just to get a bit of confidence back in the team and not feel like they're going unrewarded for their efforts as perhaps they might feel at the moment on this little 4-game skid where they haven't won a game.
I do have very little confidence that Auckland FC will score a goal when they're in that desperate goal seeking mode. They were a goal down against the Mariners for a while in that game, but coming into the last 20 minutes, that's when you kind of sharpen towards get the ball down the other end of the field. In theory, Sam Cosgrove is good for that style of football. But this is the issue with Auckland FC all season is we've talked a lot about Sam Cosgrove, and I just don't think all of the stuff I've said about Sam Cosgrove is evident when Auckland FC are chasing goals. Because they send the ball to Cosgrove. You've got the long throw-ins. You've got the corner kicks that come from dominant possession. You've got crosses from the wide areas, none of which Cosgrove is actually doing anything with. So they have this plan, this strategy that makes a lot of sense. We're a goal down. We got good crosses. I do also like... I don't know if it's going to be that big a deal, but long throw-ins are all the trend in football, and New Zealand has a lot of long throwers. Bill Tuiloma, Sakai isn't from New Zealand, but he does it for Auckland FC.
Alan Elliott hurled a couple of them on the weekend.
Yeah, so ahead of the World Cup, if you're looking for long throwers, New Zealand does have long throwers to watch out for. And they probably have someone better in the box than Sam Cosgrove, so that could be good for the All Whites at the World Cup. But when Auckland FC are chasing goals, their strategy does not align with what their striker is realistically good at. And it's a confusing one because the strategy aligns with what Cosgrove is theoretically good at. So the plan sounds good. And you can kind of get the sense that, okay, we need a goal. We're just going to whip in crosses to Sam Cosgrove. And surely, he's one of the top goal scorers in the A-League. He's going to score a goal. And then you watch Cosgrove either miss the ball or miss the goal with his headers. And it's over and over again. And then what's happening after that? Nothing.
Yeah, my mind's missing something as well.
No one else has really got the clinical finishing to find that goal. And maybe it's just when the pressure of being a goal behind comes into the equation that some other things fall away. Because when there isn't that pressure, Cosgrove does win the odd header. You do see other players...
When you're 1-0 down at the end of a game as well, the other team is also just everyone's back defending, right? That also makes it harder. Cosgrove's getting double teamed, to use an NBA expression there.
And they know that he's getting double teamed because the plan is to get the ball to Cosgrove. And then also the Mariners, they had old mate Redmayne, who just dominated everything.
Yeah.
So Redmayne was better than Cosgrove in those situations at their respective jobs. And I think the worst case scenario for Auckland FC as they get into these big games, whether it is against Sydney FC this weekend on Sunday or it is finals footy, is they're a goal down, 30 minutes to go, everyone's going to be expecting Cosgrove to do something or get the ball to Cosgrove, and they will not score a goal. I'm pretty
Well, how
confident.
many times do you think in what is the seasons that they would have played, I don't know, somewhere around about 55 games of A-League football in their history? How many times do you reckon they've won after conceding the first goal?
4.
Zero.
Oh,
They've actually never won a game when they concede first. And guess what they've done in each of the last 4 games? They've conceded the first goal. They are getting this season compared to last season, they're getting better at being able to fight back to draw some of those. And that's a pretty important aspect of finals footy. But they're not winning those games, and they've never been winning those games.
the good thing for Auckland FC may be that no one was very good against the Mariners. So that leaves plenty of room for improvement, even to the extent where Jesse Randall was a bit ho-hum and didn't really have the same threat that he has had in recent weeks. So it's not just like Sam Cosgrove is frustrating. There are a lot of players for Auckland FC who were below their best, and it's like then that happens and you start to look at Lachlan Brook a little bit differently, like where when he doesn't get the ball, he's throwing a tantrum type of stuff, and you're like, I don't know if this is like helping your team, um, but we've seen that less than we have seen good Auckland FC this season. So I think we have to assume that they will respond and they will find a way. It's also worth noting that Steve Corica was not on the sideline because he had thrown a tantrum previously, and of course there was the thunderstorm that interrupted this game with a thunder clap that was right on top of Mount Smart, so that was good fun. The weakness, like I still think goals can be a weakness for this team, but Randall scoring goals, Cosgrove scoring goals, Brook can score goals, all that stuff, but there does seem a little bit like the defensive fortitude isn't as strong. They've conceded 27 goals this season. Sydney FC have conceded 23. They're the only teams below 30 goals conceded, so it's not terrible, and they only conceded 1 goal to the Mariners. But I don't know, it's just not as scary as it felt like it was last season. And of course, Nando Peineker's out injured. Vucelic didn't play.
He was on the bench, but yeah, he didn't get used. There's a significant one that you miss in there as well, because, and I think it applies, like it ties together both of those ideas about them getting quite predictable, lumping the ball into the box, and Cosgrove not really putting those away, and also not like if, it's fine if Cosgrove isn't winning those headers, but he's attracting a couple of defenders' attention. Like you can use that if you've got someone else who can win some headers, but no one else seems to be able to do that either. Certainly not while Nando Peineker's off the pitch. If he was out there, I think that gives them an extra option, particularly on set pieces, because I don't think you want to post him up there permanently late in games. Although we did see it briefly, I think, last year with Tommy Smith. I think at the end of a game, he went up and just hung around as a striker. Have seen it for the Wellington Phoenix women a couple of times with Ali Walker this season. So it is a move that gets tried, and I think Steve Corica would not be above that. But just having Nando up there as a target on corner kicks would be a significant thing. But who takes those corner kicks? Often it's Francis de Vries, and the lack of Francis de Vries and his precise crossing, I think, is a contributing factor to that aspect. And I think it's also a contributing factor to the fact that they've been caught out a few times defensively in the last couple of games. And he's missed 3 games ever. Like he played every single game last season, started all of them, started every game up until he got injured away with all whites recently. And so he's missed 3 games since then. They haven't won any of them. And I struggle to see that as a coincidence as well. So I think just getting him fit would be maybe the most significant thing they can do since getting Hiroki Sakai fit again. That was previously the most significant thing they could do to fix the team. Now they just need De Vries out there because he is such a crucial player, and not just being a senior leader on the pitch and being like a dependable, reliable player. He's actually quite crucial to their style of play as well. And not having him has been, I think quite a Quite a bugger for them. We did see a return to that, like sort of the dream team top four that with Rogerson out wide and on one side and Jesse Randall out wide on the other side, Brooke playing through the middle underneath Sam Cosgrove. That worked so well at the start of the season when they went to that, including in one of those derby games where they were awesome. Like that didn't look anywhere near as good on the weekend. And yeah, just they need to find a way to center Jesse Randall again. He was when they were at their best, he was such a big figure for them, and it just feels like he's barely he hasn't taken like a clean shot. He's only had one shot on target in the last 4 games, and that is not enough. You have to stop trying to get Sam Cosgrove headers at the back post every time or whatever. Gallegos seems to be getting a lot of opportunities lately, just pouncing in the box and not quite putting those away. Guillermo Mai's finishing's been a bit rubbish for the last month. Logan Rogerson hasn't been scoring goals all year. He hasn't been scoring. They did at least get a really nice Brook free kick a couple of weeks ago, but if you take away his free kicks, his scoring from open play this season has not been that great. Jesse Randall really was the shining light for a while there as their most, I wouldn't say most efficient, because he's still a guy who's going to miss a lot of chances, but he's one of those guys, like we've said a few times about Michaela Woods for the Wellington Phoenix women, like one of those players you can trust them. If you play through them enough, you can trust that type of player to get 3 or 4 chances in a game, and they only need to be able to score maybe one of those 3 or 4 to have done their job for that day. And just getting Jesse Randall into more situations where he's in the box looking to shoot rather than out wide trying to cross the ball, I think would help. And I almost wonder if it's not a bad idea away against Sydney to chuck him up front alongside Cosgrove. And maybe you have to, in order to stop this thing where they can't seem to, like they overcommit on set pieces and get picked off on the break sometimes. It's happened a couple times in recent games, which is not a good sign when that stuff is happening. Almost wonder if maybe they just need to be like pick 2 defensive midfielders, put like Howison alongside Verstrada and just try to hold the fort there and be a little bit more of a counter-attacking team with Randall up front to where he's looking to get in behind the line, not just looking to take on wing fullbacks. I wonder if something like that might be like even if just a 1 week temporary fix to get that result, that gives them confidence going into the finals. Even just something like that, I feel like that's a plan that would work better than just like let's cross the ball 300 times and not win or either not win those headers or just not put those headers on target.
I prefer having Randall bounce off Cosgrove than Mai or Brooke, like, because Cosgrove's his flick-ons are going to put Randall into space.
And he, other than in contrast to the other two, he is a runner who's going to go in behind. He's not going to float around underneath. Yeah.
I think Gallegos finished at left back.
Yeah, well, that was just sort of like that was just makeshift to get more attackers up front.
But it was like, that's like there's nothing outstanding about Gallegos, but
I've been thinking that all season.
No, but he's good.
Yeah, he's fine. But
I think he's better than fine, but like he doesn't have like a super duper power, but I think he's always one of their best players. And left back isn't his best position, but he covered it. And I mean, it's tough for Gallegos if he's playing left back and they've taken Verstrada off. So you've got no defense, basically. And I did see Verstrada serving it to his forwards just before he got taken off. And it was like, there was Mai, Cosgrove, Brooke, maybe someone else like Randall. None of them put in a defensive effort to get behind the ball. So the ball was around halfway. They were all ahead of the ball, and Verstrada was like ripping into them. So there were a few things that didn't seem up to the Auckland FC standards, and I mean, credit to Verstrada, he was willing to let them know about it, because Steve Corica wasn't going to let them know about it because he was up in the stands, and we didn't get him in his raincoat blazer, which would have been useful in the
that would have been a sight
in the thunderstorm. You seem to be going deep into some Gallios thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what the record is when he starts versus when he doesn't. He started 16 games, and those games have been a draw, loss, draw, loss, draw, loss. Then they came good. Win, draw, win, win, draw, win. And he's actually started like 11 in a row at this point, 13 in a row. So that also now encompasses the loss, draw, draw, loss. The games where he hasn't started, they've won, this, which was all in the first half of the season. So that's grain of salt with that. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They won 7, drew 1, lost 1. So 7, 1, and 1 in the games he hasn't started. Started terribly when he did start, but they have had a spell of form more recently, including the 5-0 over Wellington and the 3-0 over City, the win in Newcastle, just because he's been starting every game recently. What's Verstraete been doing? Yeah, because Verstraete's only been back in the starting lineup for the last 3 games since he had that injury. So yeah, I don't know. The thing is when you're on 4 games unbeaten heading into finals, well, 1 game before finals, I don't think anyone should be feeling safe. Otherwise, you're the St. George or Dragons. If you're starting to just be like, you can be in the team no matter what. But yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering about different combinations they can try. But also, they tried different combinations in this game, and it was a freaky game. And I don't think it's a game the Central Coast one is not one to overreact to because, Torrica was in the stands. There was a lightning storm. It was a freaky game in a few different ways. Francis de Vries is not available currently, and clearly that's having an impact. But yeah, they just throughout these last 4 games, I've sort of like after each time I've thought, well, they played all right, or there were mitigating factors. Like I'm not worried about this leading into finals. But when it happens 4 times in a row, you start being like, well, even if the same things are all true in isolation for each of those games, there's a pattern that's emerging, and that's not a pattern you want to take into the season defining games that are going to be following up.
Let's check in with Kiwi cricket matters where the Blackcaps, they lost the second ODI in Bangladesh. They won the first one though, so they are 1-1 heading into the series decider that I think is on Thursday. And New Zealand A are in Sri Lanka, where they had a draw in their 4-dayer, which means New Zealand A is undefeated in their last 9 first-class games. They played Australia A in New Zealand. They had a win and a draw. Then they went to Australia. They had 2 wins in Australia against Australia A. Seems good. Then they went to Bangladesh last year and they won. Then they had a draw. South Africa last year, won and a draw. Now Sri Lanka, they've started with a draw, and we'll wait and see if they can get a result, hopefully a win, just to keep things spicy there, because if you have 2 draws, it does lose a bit of its polish, especially A cricket, when you kind of wonder if anyone is pushing for a result. But we'll wait and see. But it does, like, there's a clear theme there. They went 3 wins and 1 draw against Australia A. They've got wins in Bangladesh, in South Africa, and when you add that to the fact that I think the Blackcaps will now be 20-5 in ODIs since the start of 2025, using 29 different players with wins in Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. These are things that are telling us that New Zealand is pretty good at cricket, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to believe that New Zealand's good at cricket, instead of this constant anxiety that many Kiwis seem to have about Kiwi cricket. Start with the Blackcaps. First game, Dean Foxcroft, and I did talk all about this in an audio file for Patreon and paid Substack subscribers, which we're doing every few days, so that's a nice little throwback to the folks who on Patreon and Substack who are helping us out. First ODI, Dean Foxcroft scored a 50, Henry Nichols scored a 50. Blair Tickner took a bunch of wickets. Nathan Smith took a bunch of wickets. Second ODI, Nick Kelly finally got a score in international cricket, which was good for him because he was averaging 14 in ODIs and T20s. Now he's averaging 28 in ODIs. So that one score helped out Nick Kelly's ODI average. And I was viewing Nick Kelly in the category of a player who has not taken his opportunity. Then he hit 83 runs in the second ODI and he's taken his opportunity. So shout out to Nick Kelly. Meanwhile, Will Young and Tom Latham aren't scoring runs. Young's got 32 runs in 2 innings. Latham's got 28 runs in 2 innings against Bangladesh. Then we go to ODIs since the start of 2025. Will Young's averaging 21.8, as I said earlier, and Tom Latham's averaging 24.5. The best of the veteran batters in the squad, although Nick Kelly is 32 years old, is Henry Nicholls, averaging 27.1 in his 8 ODIs, 250s, after an excellent summer of domestic cricket. So Henry Nicholls is doing all he can. I also like what Nathan Smith is doing with the ball. He's now averaging 28 since the start of 2025. Willow Rourke hasn't fired, and that's some injury stuff happening there on the comeback from injury. But he wasn't firing in ODIs before his injury either. He has 19 wickets at an average of 41 since the start of 2025 in ODIs. But we know that he is an absolute monster with the ball. And the crossover with New Zealand-A is most evident in, well, the best thing to cross over, the best pocket to cross over is the lefty finger spinner, because Jaden Lennox has been really good to start his ODI career. He's played 4 games. He's got 6 wickets, averaging 25, 3.8 RPO. Then we go to New Zealand-A, and the best player overall in the one-dayers and the first-class games for New Zealand-A in Sri Lanka has been Tim Pringle, left-arm finger spinner. Tim Pringle, who was ND's best spinner last season, second for wickets in Plunket Shield, Super Smash champion. He is now New Zealand-A's best player overall. So we've got Jaden Lennox entering the Blackcaps ODI team and doing a really good job. And then below that, we've got a very similar bowler in Tim Pringle, looking very impressive on his rise towards Blackcaps cricket. So you do have 2 very good left-arm spinners. And of course, Tim Pringle's already played ODIs and T20 internationals for Netherlands. So he can't be far away, but he's got to be doing better than Jaden Lennox, who is currently doing a great job for the Blackcaps in ODIs. He hasn't played T20s, which I think is his best format, as is the case for most New Zealand spinners.
Yeah, nice. And I think I'm right in saying this Nathan Smith been not out with a bat as well in both of these 2 ODIs.
Yes.
He certainly was last night.
His overall ODI batting stats aren't very good, but since returning from injury mid-season, just gone, he has scores of 9, 14, 64 not out, 30, 39, 62 not out, 13, 42, 71, 13, 21 not out, 18 not out. So he's scoring runs. And I did say in the Patreon audio wrap that I think Nathan Smith can average, well, right now in List A cricket, he's averaging 25 and 32, averaging 25 with the bat, 32 with the ball. First class, he's averaging 27 with the bat and 26 with the ball. So basically, in first class cricket, he's averaging 27 with bat and ball. And I think that is what Nathan Smith is capable of. And his ODI batting averages 11.7, which comes from the first phase of his ODI career. As
Going
does
up with
his,
those not outs though.
yeah, now he's got a couple not outs, as does his bowling average of 31. But Nathan Smith has gone, first year of ODI bowling, he averaged 87 with 1 wicket. Last year, he took 17 wickets at 29. This year, he's got 4 wickets at 23. So he's on a nice progression, which is matched by Blair Tickner in ODIs. 4 years of ODI bowling, 9 wickets at 37, 7 wickets at 49, 9 wickets at 17, 4 wickets at 19. So he is doing well in all formats because he did his job for the Test team last season, but he's also making great progress in ODIs. But I mean, Nathan Smith, so Dean Foxcroft also took a few wickets, 1 wicket, sorry, in the first game and was tidy with his offies, having also scored a 50. So that sums up the Black Caps all-rounder situation right there. Nathan Smith, he is I don't know, 30 and 30 seems a bit strong with the bat. Let's say, yeah, 27 and 27 I think is a good spot for Nathan Smith. I think that's what he is capable of, averaging 27 with the bat, 27 with the ball. Dean Foxcroft is he's averaging over 30 in all 3 batting formats and under 40 with the ball in first class List A and T20s. So that shows what he is capable of, none of which has quite been put out there for the Black Caps just yet, but he does have a 50 and he does have a few tidy bowling performances as well.
Yeah, Blair Tickner has taken forfeits in 3 of his last 5 games of ODI cricket. This is since he got back in the team, since basically over the summer, because he was 2 forfeits against England when he was called up sort of suddenly. Then he got 1 in the first ODI against Bangladesh. Yeah, so he's last 5 games he's averaging a cheeky 18 with the ball.
Yep, and
Haven't got RPO on this, but yeah,
means
lovely stuff.
he has the lowest bowling average for all Black Caps since the start of 2025 in ODIs. 13 wickets at 18. Matt Henry, 31 wickets at 18.5. Ben Sears, 10 wickets at 19.7. They're the only bowlers averaging below 20 in this period. And Jacob Duffy's on 21 wickets, averaging 21.4. So the most efficient Black Caps ODI bowlers in a dominant phase of ODI cricket are Matt Henry, Blair Tickner, Ben Sears, and Jacob Duffy.
It's funny because as recently as like 6 months ago, the idea of Blair Tickner in a Black Caps lineup would have been a little bit underwhelming. You know, it would have been like, we're picking those guys again. And now I'm excited to see Blair Tickner play cricket. I love watching him bowl. He's good fun. He makes things happen, and he's an energetic character, and he, above all else, has been taking wickets because you mentioned it's not just the ODIs. He got a haul in Test cricket as well. So it's just his example seems like such a emblematic thing of Kiwi cricket, where it's like, we're at the point where people start to be like, "Oh, he's had his chance, throw him aside, forget about that guy." He continues to improve and then has like career best form at a time after which perhaps it might have felt like his inclusion is not so much, is not so exciting anymore. That's when he has this big jump up, and it's like it's just there's so many examples of similar types of trajectories especially from Kiwi bowlers, where it's like you don't hit your peak at 23, 24, 25. You hit peak at like round about that 30 and a few years after that. And it's just, yeah, it's a nice example of how that well, it's a lesson in how that kind of stuff can work, but it's also a reminder that the way in which the Black Caps operate here is not like, because people see these kind of lineups and they're like, oh, Henry Nichols is back, and yeah, Henry Nichols scores so many runs domestically. Like these kind of lineups where it's like you're filling it out with what other countries might look at and label as journeymen, but it's also like they're not really journeymen. They're just good players who are commanding selection and deserve to be there, and are also in many cases like take those opportunities as they come to them.
Yeah, and there's so much evidence that this is a theme in New Zealand cricket of older guys getting better, because like Michael Bracewell, older guy who just became an international cricketer. Michael Ray. Henry Nichols isn't going away. Nick Kelly kept fighting and got his score as a 32-year-old. Tim Seifert's a bit older. He's in career best T20 form. Could go on and on. Jaden Lennox, mature cricketer who's now just a certified Black Caps ODI bowler. Jacob Duffy.
Even Matt Henry, he was already good, but the level he's gone up to since.
Mitchell Santner. Now he is an excellent batter.
And a test bowler, like these things that were flagging in his game before,
Yeah, he wasn't a test bowler, then he got old, and he's now a test bowler and an excellent T20 batter. Like, I don't know how anyone can have any negative feelings about mature, older Black Caps when all the evidence in the Black Caps system tells us that these guys keep getting better. And youngsters have to be better than them. And if you're not getting better and you're hitting a bit of a plateau like a Will Young, then you're in a danger zone, because there's a lot of young cricketers who are hungry for the opportunities, and these opportunities don't come around very often because the older players keep getting better. So if you're Will Young and you're not scoring runs, well, let's see what happened for New Zealand A. Curtis Heafy, 162. Tim Robinson, 130. Matt Boyle's on the rise. We did have like the wicket-keeping situation. Tom Blundell got injured. Mitch Hayes scored 60-odd on Test debut. So what did Tom Blundell do coming back from injury? Scored a shitload of runs. That's what you have to do, because there's just so much talent. Muhammad Abbas scored a century in the one-dayers against Sri Lanka A, and then came into this Black Caps ODI team. Doesn't have a big knock, but he's clearly there as one of the best emerging batters and all-rounders in New Zealand. Reece Mariu doesn't really have any scores recently either. He did have, he finished Plunket Shield with 52, 26, 142, but for New Zealand A, he's got scores of 19, 28, and 17 at the same time as Abbas hit a century, Robinson hit a century, Heafy hit a century. And if Robinson's hitting long-form centuries, you better watch out, because he's already one of our best T20 batters. He's chasing all format selection. And respect to every other emerging batter in New Zealand, Bevan Jacobs and so on, but Curtis Heafy is the only dude averaging over 40 in first class and list A batting. So you can see how there's some crossover there. You've got someone like Tim Robinson who enters the Black Caps as a T20 batter and he grows out his other skill sets. Like Curtis Heafy is a Super Smash champion. He's already got that in the bag. But his work, his best stuff comes in first class and list A cricket, and he's growing in the T20 format, but there's overlap as far as what their future roles for the Black Caps could look like, because you do have Robinson, Matt Boyle, Bevan Jacobs, who have dominated T20 cricket in New Zealand. Then you've got Reece Mariu, Curtis Heafy, those type of players who have dominated the longer formats.
So the series is relatively early. We only played 2 games against Bangladesh, and I think there's a third plus a T20 series. I think is right? And these types of series are kind of where you get to do a little bit of that shuffling, where it's like, if we're talking about Nick Kelly taking an opportunity and things like that. Jaden Lennox bowling quite well. Are there players so far from the first couple of games? Maybe if this should include the A stuff as well, I'm not sure, but who feel like they've jumped up in the pecking order over the course of either this Black Caps tour, or probably should count the New Zealand A stuff because that's been going on for longer. But any names pop to mind there, like players who feel like they've advanced their case, moved up the ranks?
Well, Tickner, Lennox, Smith,
Yeah.
they're all doing pretty well. Dean Foxcroft is probably the most undercover one, because he hasn't played for the Black Caps very often recently. And again, it's like the Warriors, where you don't just have depth, you don't just have competitive depth, you've got depth in specific roles. So we go Michael Bracewell, Cole McConchie, Dean Foxcroft, spinning all-rounders below Glenn Phillips and Rachin Ravindra. We're seaming all-rounders, Nathan Smith, Muhammad Abbas, so on and so forth. And I think what Dean Foxcroft has done early in his career for the Black Caps is interesting, because he also played a similar role for New Zealand A in Bangladesh last year, so he does have a bit of experience in this position as far as his role playing in Bangladesh. But again, like, his best batting format is T20 cricket, but he's averaging over 30 in all 3 formats, and he's already got a ODI half century as a key player in the Black Caps victory. So he's definitely on the rise as far as batting goes. Based on what happened for New Zealand A and then coming into the Black Caps, and what Muhammad Abbas has already done for the Black Caps, because he's already scored runs for the Black Caps in that ODI series against Pakistan early last year, he is probably the next in line as far as emerging talent goes. Like, there's not many emerging bowlers in this Black Caps squad. The guys who have bowled 10 overs are 10 plus overs are Blair Tickner, Lennox, Smith, O'Rourke, and Foxcroft. Josh Clarkson probably needs to do something pretty soon, or else he might slip off the back of the Black Caps depth chart as an all-rounder. But the best emerging pocket for the Black Caps is probably Dean Foxcroft and Abbas. Foxcroft has the score in Bangladesh in a win. Abbas has the century for New Zealand A, but also some good stuff for the Black Caps in ODI cricket already.
Right on. Anything else from the cricket angles that
No.
I can't think to ask about? Okay, that's why I can't think of it. There's nothing gone.
That's where we need to
Safe.
wrap it up. Big up everyone. Big up Aotearoa. Do your best. Have a good old time. Be nice to each other. And we will be dropping some audio files on Patreon and for the paid Substack subscribers. So stay tuned. Hit us up on those platforms if you're doing to help us out. And we'll keep doing our best. Big up. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.